Technology has been linked to many mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, sleep problems, but it also has several positive benefits as well. So, how in this day and age do we balance between the positive and maybe some of the things that we just need to keep our eye out for when it comes to mental health and technology? My name is Katie Dubnik, and I'm excited today to have a group of our community experts sharing with us a little bit of information about this that we can take home with us today. Let's talk a little bit about, I hate to call it an epidemic, but I do feel like there's just a lot that we've had to learn in a short amount of time about balancing the appropriate amounts and what is the impact on our physical health and our mental health. And we've kind of seen these things evolve over time and after technology's been such a big part of everyday life. So, Dr. Gottsman, why don't we start with you and jump in on that a little bit?
If you look back at kind of when did this start, people initially, some people are like, did it start with COVID? But it started way before that. Practice started to change. The iPhone was released in 2007. Between 2010 to 2015, anxiety and depression increased in kids by 2.5 times. 2.5 times. It's a 150% change in the rates of anxiety and depression in adolescents and even kind of older kids. And in addition to that, it's not only actually in the United States, it's actually happened in other places that have the same kind of technology. Our technology changed from something that was on a computer to something that was in our hand all the time. And what that has done is changed the way we all live. And with that increase in anxiety and depression, what we have seen in pediatrics is all of the effects on kids. And self-harm visits to emergency rooms have tripled in teenage girls. And it's not your 15-year-olds, it's your 10. The statistics are like 10 to 18. So it's little kids that are cutting. They're seeing it on TikTok and that kind of stuff. It's multifactorial. So I think, what we don't want to do in this conversation is just say screen time is bad. But I think we do have to realize how much screen time are kids spending. The statistics are for entertainment screen time, non-school related screen time, the average that an 8 to 10-year-old spends is 5 hours a day, which when you consider how long they are awake, that means most of their time they're not in school. And certainly in the summertime, it's a whole lot more of a challenge for all of us as parents to keep them off more than that. But 5 hours a day for them, for the 11 to 14-year-olds, it's 8 hours. And the kind of high school kids are 9 hours. How do we talk to people about it? How do we as a society really address this? Because it is definitely, it's not good for any of us. It's not good for us to be so attached. And so trying to figure out how we're gonna tackle all that with the questions that we have.
So Taewon, one of the things that I'm interested in as well as a parent, so my in-laws have always said we have to raise our kids in the world in which they live. So we can't tell them, you can have no technology, you can have no limits, you can have no boundaries. You're just cut off and you just not gonna have this piece of your world. And that's not, reasonable. So to me also, there's an addendum to that. Like, yes, we have to find balance in what they're doing, but also in what we're doing as a parents. How are we modeling behaviors as adults and what are they watching and seeing? And is that important for our kids and youth to see?
No, I think that's a great statement that you made because it is important that we're modeling appropriate usage of cell phone technology, of social media apps, because we are the first sign of what is appropriate management of cell phone use. If we want our kids to be off the phone a certain times a day or a certain limits of hours on the phone, we have to model that ourselves. There's a great function on most iPhones that allows you to see the screen time usage, and you're able to see what your weekly, your daily usage is. And if you're monitoring that and then monitoring yours as well as your kids, you can be in sync. And so I think a lot of times parents often have a lot of things on their plate, as most parents do, but it's important to make time to spend time with your child, to have those conversations with your child. And when you're making those times, that's when you can kind of alleviate the TikTok, the Instagram, the Snapchat, because you're actually engaging in a meaningful conversation. When you see that your parent is using it correctly, then you're more likely as a child to use it correctly as well. So just being aware of how often you're being on social media and being aware of how often your child is on social media, and then using those gaps of time when you're not on it to build relationship, because that's super important. Being able to have those conversations and those relationships with your kids and not have them go to a social media app for that same connection is super important, especially for kids nowadays, because most kids want to have that social connected aspect.
With my kids, one of the things I was like, so if you're going to be on, when they were in high school, if you're going to be on Instagram, set an alarm, and after 30 minutes, I want you to kind of at least pay attention that you've been on it that long. Because I think all of us scroll and don't realize how much time you're spending, and it's like a time sink. You know, it's boys on YouTube most of the time, and then, you know, TikTok, and then you've got
Well, I was going to say,
Instagram.
I didn't realize, my 16-year-old said that to me the other day. She said, I spent 3 hours on fill in the blank app, and I had no idea. And we said, well, what do you think about that? And she said, I got to cut back. So that was just that realization of that timer was what told her about that. So that, I think it was perfect.
Dr. Bruner, how do we have a conversation with our kids or our grandkids or even just our family unit about technology and technology use? To y'all's point, we don't want to build barriers. We don't want to approach it in a way that they will immediately, you know, close off and not listen to what we have to say. What tips do you have for that?
First, you start with a curious, non-judgmental attitude. You just ask, tell me what are you into? Show me what you're doing. Show me what you like, what you don't like. Have you, ask questions and be genuinely interested. Do you have any problems? Do you have any things that you like that you'd like to do more of, or that you'd like to hear less about in certain things? Do you ever get worried about the things that you look at? What really excites you, right? And have them show you on their phone. Then, once you're really having the genuine conversation, you can say, do you ever wonder maybe if you're spending too much time doing this? And if you're not coming at them on a judgmental standpoint, they can say, yeah, probably so. I probably need to cut back a little bit, and then you go from there.
No, and I think that's great, because one of the things when I work with students, I always talk about, therapy is a judgment-free zone, but connecting with them on something they like, whether it be a social media app, a video game, or whatever the case may be, is a way to at least build that bridge of communication. And eventually you move past the having to be on your phone 10 hours a day and actually get those skills to develop conversations and actually engage with your peers. So you meet them where they are so that you can build upon that. What I've read recently too, and especially depending on children that have disabilities, children that may be on the spectrum, who may have a harder time connecting with people in person, sometimes having online access to social media apps can be helpful for them because they're able to connect with people that are similar to them. Same thing with children who are maybe part of the LGBTQIA community who may have a harder time connecting with people in their school. They are able to build relationships with people online. So there are a lot of positives. However, it still has to be boundaries, because the overall goal is we want you to engage in those relationships, but we also want you to be able to engage in person and build those skills so that, when you are older, you're able to have conversations with, adults, other adults, and be able to part of the workforce. So like I said, there are positives, but the overall goal is you're still wanting to build those social skills, those communication skills, not only online, but in person as well.
And there's certain apps that I recommend as a therapist. It's called Calm. There's another one called Headspace. And there's a new one I found called Tap Out. And it actually teaches what we call soft skills, emotional regulation, a resilience type, resilience-based skills training. And some of them are free, some of them require a subscription, but they're very useful for our kids. And again, as Tawan said, help us have a conversation as a parent with our children.
Do you guys have any other additional resources that we want to make sure that we mention that could help families, have these conversations, looking at these things, learning more about the implications from you guys' perspective as well?
There's a book that I think we need to mention called The Anxious Generation, and Jonathan Haidt is the author, social psychologist. Excellent. It's one of those everybody's talking about right now, and so I recommend it to every parent
Just came
and
out
every
in March,
educator.
I
That's
think,
right.
yeah.
That's right. Brand new. great resource. He has some really good recommendations in there and backs up everything he says. So that's a definite one to read. American Academy of Pediatrics, American Psychological Association, American Psychiatric Association, Mayo Clinic. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Main thing is educate yourself, get information, and then try to find a way to implement it with your family, because everybody's situation is different.
Thank you guys so much for your time today and for sharing with us a little bit about how mental health and technology, can impact each other. We encourage you that have watched today, if you liked this, to please share it with friends, share it with people in your circles and in your community so they can all learn from our community experts as well. And don't forget to reach out and check in on one another. We're stronger that way.